I'm going to convene this meeting of the Madras Aquatic Center Recreation District Board of Directors on Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025 at 6:01, starting off with our work session. And first up on the agenda there is our mid-year fiscal year 2024-25 budget review. For discussion only at this point.
Okay. First, if you can hear us on Zoom, can you give me a little wave? I see Becky waving. Excellent. Thank you. If at any time you can't hear us, please message. Thanks, Amanda, for sending a chat. In your packet, so because our fiscal year is a July 1 to June 30 fiscal year, in December, we wrap up our first 6 months of the fiscal year and we do a financial review for the first 6 months of our fiscal year. And so that's tonight. What you have in your packet is a cover memo kind of talking you through the reason we do this, and giving you a little background on this year's budgets. Because we've got a couple new board members who weren't here in the summer when we did our first budget adjustment, I just thought it might be helpful to walk through this. So the board had received 2 potential budgets back in May of 2024. One if the measures had passed and one if the measures had failed. Because the measures failed, the budget committee convened and said, we cannot adopt this budget. We need you to go back and figure out how to have more hours. So we came back for the second budget committee meeting and we said, if we can find $125,000 in grants, we can be open more than what the original proposed budget for the measures failing had. So we did that. The budget committee approved it and the board adopted it. And then in the summer, as you'll remember, PG&E had overpaid taxes that prior year. And for us, the impact was about $70,000 between the general fund and the debt service fund. That $70,000 had to get paid back. Plus, when we had built that budget, we had included those numbers as our baseline. So we had to go in and cut even more out of our property taxes in order to balance the budget. And so we ended up cutting about $127,000 of property taxes out of the budget in August. And as a result, we also significantly reduced our expenses and hoped that we were going to find $125,000 in grants to help pay for the budget. So we have been monitoring revenues and expenses. We've been reporting to the board every month like we usually do on what our grant activity has been and what our revenues and expenses have been. Something that will impact our budget is that we will be transferring money from the general fund to the debt service fund to pay off our final bond payment because we did not levy enough taxes because we didn't know PG&E was happening when we set that amount that needed to be levied. So as of right now, it looks like that could be upwards of $30,000 to $40,000 that we will have to transfer. And I want the board to recognize that there's a difference between budget and cash flow. So when you look at how much cash we have, it's different from what the numbers you see in the budget, okay? So from a cash flow perspective, I am concerned about us being able to meet that transfer requirement so we can make that final payment and for us meeting payroll and other expenses for the months of May and June. So I'm keeping an eye on it, but I want you to know right now, just being fully transparent, I'm hoping we can get the tax anticipation loan from the county early so that can help cash flow us, whether the measures pass or fail this May. Because we normally try not to dip into that tax anticipation loan until July 1 of the next fiscal year, but we may need to tap into it as early as May this year because of the challenges that we've been having. One of the challenges that we're seeing is that property taxes are not getting paid at the level that they typically are. So I reached out to our tax collector and asked him, what he's seeing from a trend perspective. As of right now, our budget is at 91.5% of taxes collected that we anticipated. Historically, we're at 93% at this time of the year. And so the question is, are people choosing to not pay their taxes this year, or are they choosing to pay in the thirds payment plan? And the county was unable to tell me at this point which route people are going. So that's an unknown that we have out there right now. The first payments are in February, so we'll kind of get a sense if February we see it bump up. Yes, Frank.
So property taxes that we budgeted and all that kind of stuff, the county only pays when paid.
Yeah, so every month the county turns over out of an unsegregated property tax account where all that money goes into, then they turn it over based on the percentage of value that we have. And all the other taxing districts too.
Past years, taxes been paid 100%.
The collection rate is usually 97-ish%.
Just that 3%.
Yes, we always take that to account in the budget. Sometimes. So we'll know more in February about taxes, but that's concerning to me because we had already sort of hoped that we were going to get this level because of the cuts that we had to do. So that's my first concern. A positive thing is memberships are trending up higher than they've been. So we're about 25% increase over last year at this time in memberships. And we've seen a boom of memberships through Medicaid this month, Medicare this month. And so that's now through Optum. So that's been huge. I think last year at this time, we had 3 people signed up for that membership. And right now we've got 56 signed up for that membership. So huge growth in our senior population, taking advantage of us being a membership gym option for them. User and registration revenue is trending well below budget. We have a few different reasons that we think this is happening. Over the summer, we weren't sure what our budget was going to look like. We weren't sure what programs we were going to offer for fall, and we did not market them as heavily. And as a result, soccer did not have the enrollment it usually does. Flag football didn't have enough enrollment to even run. We canceled flag football. And then club volleyball ended up not going either. So that's all impacting our revenues. It also impacts our expenditures because we don't have expenses associated with those programs. But the revenues exceed the expenses in those programs. So these are those programs that we want to run.
Do we know why they were down? I mean, is it because they're doing, other areas, they're going to flag football somewhere else, they're going to club volleyball somewhere else, or what? Why is it going down?
So we know for club volleyball, the high school coach offered her own program this year, which had not happened historically, which is fine. I think we would rather be out of the business of club sports and focus on rec sports. So with soccer and flag football, we really think it's because we didn't market it as heavily as we usually do. And we know too that there was some club activity that was happening. There was a partnership between youth soccer and Bend to run some things over the fall up at Juniper Hills Park. So that may have also taken away soccer participants. We have opened up conversations with them about what the future looks like to try and create a pipeline to middle school and high school. So that might look like we do recreation soccer from pre-K to 4th grade, and then they pick up 5th grade and on. It may look like we continue doing fall and Jefferson County Youth Soccer continues doing spring, and we try and feed them into their program and they try and feed into ours. So we're still talking through what that looks like, but we are in conversation because we don't want to compete, right? We're a small community. We don't want to compete with others.
Club volleyball too. I think that a lot of our Madras, well, I know a lot of our Madras kids are playing in Clover this year.
Mhm.
For example, their 14 team, they have 3 at the 14 group on my granddaughter's playing.
Yeah, so that's another one and they're very competitive and they have a reputation for that. So
Yes. Yeah, they've got a good big program.
So all those things I think are be combined, but we don't have a direct, like, this is why we think it's not coming in as we expected. With grants, we've received a total of about $76,000 so far this year. We continue to apply and try and look for other grants. The challenge is that most of them are focused on supporting new programming, and we're trying not to do new programming. We're trying to do maintenance and equipment for existing programs and that kind of stuff. So we continue to look, but what that means is we're 50,000 short on what we budgeted so far this year in grants. So that's a concern to me, and that, we'll continue to look. So that's our revenue side of the house for mid-year review. On the expenses side of the house, personnel is at about 51.5% of budget. It's a little concerning to me. Sean and I have had some conversations about how do we bring that down. We're not going to bring it down in the next 6 weeks because we are running 233 kids through our basketball program. I expect that we're going to try and really focus those last few months of our fiscal year to run a skeleton crew to try and get through to June. But I will tell you that this category is down almost 20% year over year. So we have made cuts in personnel. And that is at all levels of personnel, not just with our seasonal staff.
Now, I got a question.
Yeah.
So on this, on basketball, the basketball staff, is that paying the referees? Is that what that is? Do we pay the young kids that are reffing the basketball games?
Yes. So we have referees. I think we've got 8 or 9 on staff for basketball. We pay a gym site coordinator type person. Shauna is one of those. And then we have 2 others that are running it during the weekend on Saturdays too. So we've got probably about 15 staff wrapped up in youth basketball.
Because if it, just to tell you, I got a lot of messages that from friends who have kids in the basketball, and they said the refs, did you not have refs before, or they were limited because they said it went so smooth, it was great to have refs there.
Sean, are you
And
hearing this?
they said good things about it, and I was like, I don't know, I don't have any kids in there. So, and they were just telling me in the past, no refs, but
So
wonderful this last week, I think.
So we've had refs in the past. It has not been, we haven't had great onboarding for those staff. This year, we had a couple community members, it's in my executive director report, step up and do a training with the refs. Ryan Boyle, who's an OSAA referee, and then Logan Bertram, who teaches, Coach B, who teaches at Buff Elementary, and he's also a basketball coach. They did a morning training with those refs, and I've heard nothing but good things. This is the first time in all my time here. I think it's a combination of factors. I think that our onboarding is stronger than it has been. I think that we've got basketball players reffing basketball, which has not always been the case. Sometimes we have soccer players trying to ref basketball. And we had this amazing onboarding training with these 2 volunteers. So if you see them, thank you to them. I mean, it's been really great.
It was great.
Did you want to say
You
something?
guys did great. They really liked it, turned it around.
Courtney, did I hear you correctly? You said we have 15 staff working basketball on the weekends. That must be counting the referees as well.
Yes, but I think Shauna just corrected me. Trying to get to my. We have a total of 7 refs on staff, but we have 5 there on Saturdays, split between 2 gyms. She's site leading one of the gyms for practices, and then we've got another staff member covering the other gym. So that's 7, 8, 9 staff who are working on basketball. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we only have 9. The reason we have 7 refs is because we have some, like they are high school basketball players, and one of them also does club volleyball, so they're not able to be there every Saturday. So I had to kind of overstaff, but they're not all available on every Saturday.
Thank you. I got a lot of positive feedback about this first Saturday of basketball. It's the first time I've ever gotten like consistently positive feedback. So kudos to Shauna and the team on that. Materials and supplies were already at 57% of budget. Part of this is that we've already overspent repairs and maintenance for this year. And I will show that to you when we get to the budget. We've had a number of unanticipated issues that have added up to, I think we're at like 39,000 so far this year. And our budget was 35,000 for the year. So as we look at the future and potential budget adjustments that may need to be made, repair and maintenance is an area where we may need to make adjustments. We're trying to cut expenses in other spaces so that we can accommodate that over expense. But we've had tears in the leisure pool lining, lap pool UV issues, spa pump and motor issues, chemical sensors needed to replace on all 3 of our chemical controllers, boiler number 1's board went out. That was 10,000, but I mean, So I'm concerned about that budget, but we're doing our best to cut back where we can. And then on capital outlay, as I mentioned, we had to replace that boilers control board because it's over $5,000. That's considered a capital expense and it falls under this line item. We had budgeted $45,000 in capital outlay to replace our domestic water heater if we found money to do that. Now, if we found money to do that, we'd have to do a budget adjustment to add budget authority to capital outlay because we've already spent $10,000 in that space. So yes.
Is there a legal requirement where we can't put money in the budget year to year to year and road maintenance replacement budget? So we have over maybe 5 years, we have $100,000 in there and just keep rolling it over and not use it until we need to use it.
That's our intent. We have a maintenance reserve fund that has $14,000 in it.
Oh, if things are going wrong, 100,000 is sufficient amount even if that.
Yep.
Cool.
Well, all of those things. As of right now, we're not recommending any budget adjustments, but I want you to be aware that come April, May, we may be looking at a budget adjustment for capital or maintenance issues, or for, I'm hoping not for personnel, but that's where we're at. And just because we have new board members, I wanted to remind you that we are required to follow local budget law. Local budget law provides a framework for how we manage our public funds. And it's the same for cities, counties, school districts. School districts are a little wonky, but very similar. And then special districts. And what it means is that the board adopts the budget at the total budget. So our total budget is 1.2 million, 1.265 million. And as a staff, our responsibility is to make sure that we monitor the budget, that we don't go over at the category level. So for us, the category level is where you see under these requirements. So recreation services includes personnel, materials, and supplies and capital. That was something we changed last year because it allows us to at a staff level, balance the budget within those 3 categories without having to make a budget adjustment with the board. If we were to take authority from contingency, for example, and move it up so we had more budget authority under capital outlay, that's something that we could do through a board resolution. So we can make adjustments to our budget authority, which is the maximum amount that we can spend, up to 10% of our budget. And then if we go over 10% of our budget, we have to follow a different set of rules with a supplemental budget. And these are all things that there's a binder that I go to when I see something, but then I look at what the rule is. If we, by some magic wand, somebody gave us $100,000 and we were able to dump it into our revenues, we would need to do a budget adjustment if we wanted to add money into expenditures, but we couldn't go beyond really that 10% of our budget. Because we have because the local budget law requires that we stay within that authority. Does that make sense? So it's not like when you're at home with your checkbook and you say, oh, I got an extra 5,000 for that, and now I can go spend all of that. If we get extra money, we can't just go spend it. We have to have the budget authority to do it.
So if our labor budget was 500,000 and we got $100,000 for donation, whatever, we could only put 50,000 towards that labor category.
We would actually look at the total budget for that 10%. So 1.2, whatever 120,000 is the most that, because that's 10% of the total budget.
So we could, if we got 100,000, we could add 100,000 to labor.
We could. And it's the board process of, doing a resolution and that sort of thing. Yes. Does that all make sense? It's like Jane and Ellen?
Yeah.
So as it goes with the mid-budget review, you have in your board packet our balance sheet. Nope, this is our profit and loss statement. And I try and give you a baseline. So I ran this on the 14th of January. And so I took the number of weeks we are into the fiscal year and got the baseline of 53.8%. So we want to be under 53.8% on expenses. And frankly, we want to be over that for revenues. So some areas to highlight. Memberships are 55% over of budget right now. So we're above that baseline. Facility revenues are below, but I will remind the board, we've got 2 more home swim meets, and those are going to bring in quite a bit of funds for the facility revenues. So from an income perspective, we're at 71-ish% of budget. So we're over that 53% baseline. When you look at expenses, we're getting kind of close to that 53% baseline. Personnel is at 51.2%. We're over in materials and services, and a lot of that is that facilities expense. And then program expenses and admin expenses. We have a number of annual things that we pay in January that are included in that number. So that's why you're seeing it be higher than the 53%, but we won't have any more of those expenses as the year goes on, so it'll flatten out. So overall rec services, which is the category level we're keeping an eye on, is at 52.6% of budget. So we're within where we want to be in that baseline. For my peace of mind, I'd rather us be at like 47 or 48%. And so because I tend to be kind of a more conservative budgeter, I'm concerned about what I'm looking at here. And that's why I'm telling you, I'm expecting we're going to have some sort of adjustment in May or June. And I am worried about it from a cash flow perspective. I also thought it would be helpful for the board to see a mid-year comparison to the prior year. So the next spreadsheet you have, the first column is July to December of 2024. And the column to the right of that shows you July to December of 23, because it's a pretty stark difference between last year and this year. Property taxes are down about 13%. We would expect that because we were overpaid property taxes in 2023. Memberships are up 36% over the prior year as of December 31st. Punch cards are up 25% over last year. Facility revenues are up 18%. All the things we have control over are going pretty well from my perspective. You can see that aquatics programs and land-based programs revenues are down 13.3% on aquatics. I think that's because we've reduced the number of swim lessons. We've reduced the number of open swims. And I would say too that part of it is our fitness classes are now part of our membership rather than being a separate charge. And that has also impacted that as well. But I do think that's why we're getting so many more members. I think folks see the value in being able to participate in those aquatics and land-based fitness classes. And then as you go down, total income is down about 22%. When you take out the property taxes and the beginning fund balance, we're actually down about 80,000. And that 80,000 is really the change in aquatics and land-based programs. So in my mind, that all makes sense. When you look at personnel, year over year, we're down about 19.4%. Materials and supplies, for each of the different areas, program expenses and admin are down, but you'll see facilities expenses are up 20%. And this is where you can see repairs and maintenance this year. We've already spent 37,000 and last year we had only spent 14. So what we've been saying is happening. Our repair and maintenance, it just keeps going up. And you can see that utilities also obviously went up as well. So overall, and you can see admin expenses is down almost 44%. So overall materials and services is still down 11% despite all of these facilities because we're trying our hardest, our best not to spend any money. And so overall our expenses are down 23%. So that's just something that you can see. You can compare last year to this year, the first 6 months of the fiscal year. And hopefully, see line by line. And if you look through this and have questions specifically, like why is this line so much more this year than last year, I can look up that detail for you. It's something we can do offline outside of the board meeting. Are there any questions about the mid-year budget report?
I have a question, but I love the year-over-year comparison. I think that's really helpful, for decisioning. And for onboarding. It's great to get a full, complete story.
On the back, where it says Jeffco operating loan, that's the loan you were talking about that we get from them.
From the county, yes.
Okay.
Yep. And so that those funds automatically get pulled out of our tax money
Okay.
at the end of November.
Okay.
To pay it back. And then this year, our interest did double, basically over last year. So just point that out.
Courtney, looking at those facility expenses, I find it interesting, our water was down $600, but our sewer was up. So did we have that leak going on? That was prior to the fixing of that first leak. We talked a little bit about sewer, they're gonna reassess our,
So they did reassess it,
did they?
yep, in July, August, and they said that this is the best rate you're gonna get.
That's crazy that the sewer fees would excel above the water usage fees.
I'm hoping this next year we see a correction and perhaps it goes down.
Well, given the fact that we had a leak, you would have thought water fee would be higher than our sewer. fees.
Right.
Totally.
Right. Well, and with sewer, they set it in July and it's the same every month, whereas with water, it is a month by month.
Which is not fair, because in July, we're irrigating the lawn and stuff out here too.
Well, what they do is they take November, December, January and average it. And those are the months that we have swim team displacing all of our water. So we asked them to look at, well, and then we said, well, what if you look at September, October, November? Well, we had the leak. And so that didn't help us either. So that's why I'm thinking this next year we're gonna see an adjustment down.
Now from the board for the budget review. And we will move on to our next agenda item, review proposed infant at work policy.
So board members, this is a policy that I'm presenting because we have a baby that was just born amongst our staff. We have a new McCarty baby, and trying to take a page from the county. They have this policy in place for their public health department. And so we took their language and sort of made it our own. Essentially, this policy allows a staff member to bring an infant to work with them up to the age of 6 months. They designate a lead caregiver and a secondary caregiver. So if they have to be away from an area where their child would be, if they have to be away from the office, for example, lifeguarding, then that first caregiver would take the baby and be responsible for them for that time period while the parent was off doing their job. There's a caregiver agreement, there's a work plan agreement with the parent. And from my perspective, this is an easy policy. We want to create a family-friendly environment here at the district. We've got a number of people who are ready to be caregivers for infants. And so it's not like all of a sudden we're going to have 15 babies in the place. I think we're pretty sure that there's one. But if that were to happen, I have the authority to say, no, time out on the policy, or no, this isn't going to work because of your job responsibilities. One example is if we had someone whose main job assignment was working in the pump room, then bringing a baby to work is not the best plan, because the pump room is not an area where you want an infant. So that would probably be a request that would be denied based on safety for the child and the parent. In this particular situation, we have a seasonal lifeguard that when they're here, there are others who are able to help care for that child while they're doing their duties. And we feel like it is a doable policy. So I don't know if anyone has any questions about this. I'm happy to answer them. We included in the packet both the policy and then all the forms associated with it. you know, if we do this and it's a terrible idea and it doesn't work out, then we will rescind it and have that conversation with the parent. But we thought we might as well give it a try and see if it'll work.
But I got a question,
Mhm.
is what is our liability if the baby gets hurt?
So there,
Or maybe there's some kind of critical incident.
Yep.
And the baby gets hurt.
so there is a waiver, let me get to it, that the parent signs, releasing us of all liability. And it basically says you are okay
Yeah.
with having someone else care for your child while you're working. And if something happens, they are not at risk.
To us.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
right.
Employees will.
Yes.
Young mother can't bring her 4-month-old in and ask it to be a
No, this is an infant.
Yeah,
at work.
this is.
No.
Yeah, just.
The parent has to be on site. They can't drop the baby and leave.
Well, no, they wonder if it's sweat.
Like a patron.
Oh yeah, patron, no, this is just for employees.
But Courtney, when we implemented this policy back for the county, there was a lot of discussions about which positions it would work for. It doesn't work for every position.
Yeah.
So what positions particularly within the MAC do you see it working for?
Basically any position that's not required to be in the pump room all the time.
You see it as a lifeguard position?
I do, because lifeguards, they have rotations that are within that. So the way the policy is written is you're not supposed to have a caregiver have a child for more than an hour. The way that our rotations work is that wouldn't happen. We also have a policy that protects mothers who are breastfeeding, that they get a certain, and it's a state law, they get a certain amount of time while they're at work to take care of those things. And so all of that together means that it would work just fine for a parent to have their infant if they're a lifeguard.
I'll be honest with you, I have reservations about it. Having worked with this, you take an infant that's 6 weeks old and needs to be fed every 3 hours, maybe 4, if it's a really good baby. That's taking the parent away from their workstation in the course of an 8-hour day, about an hour and a half. The position of a lifeguard, not only are we taking the lifeguard, now caregivers are being taken away from whatever they would be doing to take care of this baby, potentially 2 hours a day if there's 2 approved caregivers. That's a lot of loss of work time for staff, for a group of staff at this point in time for the MAC that's already overworked, is how I see it.
And I believe that if we found ourselves in that situation, we would have a conversation and say, this isn't working. If we found that it was taking that much time away. At the end of the day, that mother has the legal right to be away from the workstation to do the feeding anyway.
Yes.
So for that, it's sort of something we already have to legally do. For the staff that would be responsible as caregivers, because of the people who are eligible to be caregivers are essentially the people in offices and at the front desk. So they're not responsible for lifeguarding or being deck respondent on the deck. They're really just responsible for being in their particular assigned area. And as I've talked with staff about it, they feel like it wouldn't, if anything, it would be an enhancement to their job rather than a detriment.
We all know babies, they are an enhancement, but they are very time consuming and they do take us away from our duties.
And we will evaluate that.
So I kind of went through your plan and I think there's some fine tuning that possibly needs to be discussed. So maybe we should set aside a work session into the future or something to look at this.
Okay.
I think adopting a policy like this for this type of facility into the future could have some huge ramifications.
So we want to clarify, Jean, we want time to think about it, come back to it later, not leverage this current work session.
Yeah, I think there's some fine tuning. As first example, under your definitions, underneath parents, it goes on to say employees currently involved in corrective or disciplinary action may not be eligible. I think that should be a definitive. They would not be eligible if they have disciplinary action.
Okay. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I think it's something we need to do, work through on a work session, go through it and really think about it. Cause I have grave reservations about a lifeguard being a infant, at work policy person, we'll say. If I'm sitting at a desk, or if they're sitting at a desk and that's their workstation area, yeah. If they're a bookkeeper, yeah, they can probably take care of the baby, but now we're asking others to be responsible to take care of this infant at work too. I don't know.
And is it somebody you designate or they volunteer? Or somebody shows up and say, okay, you're watching the baby today.
So two people would sign up, would
Okay.
volunteer to
Right.
be caregivers. One would be a primary, one would be a secondary. And they would be the only ones
For that
responsible
shift, right?
for the entirety of the work agreement
Oh,
For that infant.
for that infant, for that parent.
Would the caregivers be expected to do all of the physical, things that are required of the baby? Change diapers, feed if they're not breastfeeding. I don't know, baby powder, comb their hair, whatever, I don't know, it's been a long time. I mean, if they're gonna be a caregiver and it's time to change the diaper, they have to go get the other person to come back and change the diaper, or mix up the formula.
So that's all part of the work agreement that is developed with the parent and the caregivers and the HR.
Well, that's not set.
So that, no, it's not set. It's something that's part of that work agreement. So I'm hearing that possibly, maybe it's also a conversation that I could have, because it sounds like you have a number of recommendations. Maybe you and I can go over it and then bring it back to the next work session. Or if
And I think
others
the rest of
also
the board
have-
should take a good hard look at it and really think about this facility and infants at work. Yeah. 'Cause my thought was definitely not a lifeguard, but possibly your front desk people. You know, I can see them having the baby in a swing, up till it's 4 or 5 months old. They're pretty quiet,
Mhm.
feed them, change them, and they're pretty good, but they get around that 5, 6 months and they're wanting to roll over, they're wanting to be played with, they're wanting to crawl. Then we got a pool, we got lifeguards. I don't know. I really think we should think hard about it.
If other board members have things that you see in that policy that could be changed or updated, or that you have questions about, please let me or let Jean know, and then get together and look at it.
Okay, so if there's nothing else now for the proposed infinite work policy, we will move on to the timeline and process for executive director annual performance evaluation. Oh, should I talk?
Yep. You get to
Okay,
lead
so-
this one.
It's that time again. For this year's iteration of Courtney's executive director evaluation, we basically leveraged what we did last year, updated the dates. No foundational changes to things. We added a few more community partners as programming has expanded and partnerships have expanded. For Courtney's 360, but what we're looking at is, tonight, we did a discussion with the board on the upcoming process, timeline, and participants. Pending agreement on that, Friday, January 24th, I would send out a Survey Monkey, of the 360, evaluation questions to all those community partners who are identified in the list, which is on the back of, the page we're looking at with the timeline. Okay, and that would close on Thursday, February 6th, giving them about 2 weeks to get it done. January 23rd, Courtney sends her completed self-evaluation to all board members by 5 p.m. as well as the final board evaluation form. All board members would then submit to me their own evaluation forms, by February 7th at 5 p.m. And then we have an evaluation team. Historically, it's been the chair and the vice chair doing that. If anybody else, would prefer to take part in that, absolutely. We can shift that around. But then we would compile all the information, and then bring that back to the board. Wednesday, February 12th, bringing that final evaluation, to the executive director. And in that portion of the meeting, the executive director can choose to do it in open or executive session. Or look for a special board meeting.
February 7th, each board member submits their evaluation form.
Yeah.
Is it a form that we make on our own?
No,
You hand me a form and I do, okay.
Yeah. and you could either, Frank, if you prefer to fill it out in the hard copy, or I can email you. Whatever works best. I email everyone on the board theirs, but if you prefer to handwrite it, whatever works better for you. Okay. Any questions about the proposal, timing or otherwise?
Looks good. It's gone well the last
I
2
know,
years.
there's
It's
no
been a
question,
process. Yeah.
Okay. Next up on our agenda, standing and timely updates.
Alright. Let me figure out where we are. So updates on grants and fundraising. As I mentioned, we have not received any new grants. You'll see that in your board packet. We have some that we've been exploring as future opportunities that have deadlines in the spring. And most of them relate back to either sports. Well, most of them are sports programs. And then we've got a number of unsuccessful applications that we have not received. I think that is my update on grants and fundraising. Are there any questions about that? Okay, so the next is sustainability plans in the May 2024 election update. So first, on your board meeting tonight, your business meeting tonight, you have a resolution that includes the findings of fact and plan for dissolution. This resolution was drafted by our attorneys and essentially is providing the framework for how we move forward with dissolving if the measures both pass on May 20th of 2025. What it does is it outlines the timeline in the process for getting to the May 20th special election. And it includes that you're adopting the findings of fact that are contained in the attached exhibits. Those exhibits include, oh my gosh, I don't know why this is so hard for me to make work. So the first exhibit kind of goes through our outstanding bonds, coupons, and other indebtedness. So it highlights that we'll be paying our final bond payment in June of $775,200. That we also have an outstanding loan with KS State Bank for energy trust improvements that were done. The amount that we will owe as of June 30th is $95,402. We have already received acceptance from KS State Bank that they are willing to transfer that indebtedness to the new district should the measures pass. That was the only question mark on this process, was whether or not they would approve it, and they approved it very quickly. We also have a credit card that we will pay off before the end of June 30, and if not, then that debt would get forwarded to the new district. Then it goes through and talks about our property, uncollected taxes, personal property. The estimated cost of dissolution is at about $60,000. Most of that is legal fees for the process that we would go through to transfer all of our current district assets to the new district should the measures pass. And then it kind of just talks through our plan for dissolution and liquidation. So the plan is if the measures pass on May 20th, that the current district will dissolve effective June 30th, 2025, and the new district would become effective July 1, 2025, which means between May 20th and June 30th, we will be dissolving the existing district and creating a new one at the same time. I will tell you from a work perspective, from a community perspective, I hope these things pass, but from a work perspective for myself, I find that I will probably be in this building 24/7 for that time period, because it's a lot to do that process. But worth it in the end, because once all of that happens, and if we get our tax anticipation loan in May, I will need to bring a resolution amending this dissolution plan, because we would need to transfer that indebtedness from the existing district to the new district. So there is the potential for that as well. And in my mind, it has to happen. Otherwise, I'm not sure how we function. Whether the measures pass or not, we have to have that tax anticipation loan. And then in addition to all of the debt and the assets that we transfer, we also have a list of all of our property as is stated in our assets. So that's all in this resolution that you will consider for adoption tonight.
So everything's given a value, right? Let's
Yes.
see, return air fan. Parking lot.
Yeah, and this is our so essentially each year we depreciate all of our assets, and we work with our auditors to do that. So they've been supportive of this process, and this all comes out of the software that they manage for us. Should the board adopt this resolution during the business meeting, we have between now and February 6th to hand it in. Once we hand this in to the county clerk, we have 10 days to call the election. And so my plan is that we will turn this in on February 6th, which is the last day that we can. And then we have 10 days and our February 12th board meeting. That's why we moved it from the last Wednesday of the month to the February 12th, so that then you could call the election. So that's the timing in the process.
When these measures is submitted, and we have the board members that are going up for re-election. Is that included in the board members, or is that a separate thing that we have to apply for?
So the county's measure, which had its first reading this morning, it has a second reading on February 12th
5:30.
at the same time as our board meeting. So their measure is the one that establishes the new board and will add the 5 new board seats. Our measure doesn't establish any of that, but we do have 3 current board positions. Should the measures not pass, that need to be on the ballot as well. So there will be 8 board positions on the May 20th ballot, 5 for the new district, 3 for the current district. And so whichever way the measures go, that's who's going to be on the board, either those 5 or these 3.
We have 5.
That was my
It's
guess.
not part of it's the LD, right?
No, it's 3.
Yes, there is a deadline. of September 30th to file.
So I think February, so I looked online, and right now it says that the application opens on a Saturday, so I'm not sure if that's accurate. No, a Saturday in February. I think it's February 7th. February 8th. Thank you. Jane Ellen with the save. So February 8th is when that opens for you to file, and you can file for both boards.
Then we go see Kate.
Yes, you go to the county admin building to the clerk. Yes. Anyone who's interested in running. It doesn't have to be current board members, it could be anybody. Yep. You have to live in the district, be over 18, and I think you have to be registered to vote. I think those are the 3 requirements.
You have to know which position you're filing for.
So the new board, you have to file for a number, a board seat
Yes.
number.
Yeah, no, you want to file for number 3.
I just look in the mirror.
Yeah. And then what's my number?
You are board position 5.
5. Okay.
Yes, because you're 1. Because you and Lynn flipped. Yes. Any questions about the dissolution plan or the resolution that you're considering tonight?
I don't have a question, but Courtney, I just want to say thank you for all the time and energy you've put into making this process easier for us to digest. I know this is a monster and I know that it is brand new territory for everyone, including the election folks. So I just want to say thank you because this is a lot. I can't even imagine how it is when it first comes across your desk to wade through. So thank you.
I agree with that. There's a lot more involved and entailed than what I was thinking before. So,
It's a lot.
It's my pleasure.
Next up on the agenda then, capital improvements and other maintenance. Nope.
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 This is the presentation everybody's here for, is next on the agenda.
Oh, I missed it. You're right.
The draft schedule and programs. I got fancy and did a Canva presentation, so we'll see if I can actually do it. So you're gonna hear me say this a few times, but because we have a couple new board members and because we've been talking about this for a couple of years, I wanted to take it back to brass tacks. Why are we doing this? And help define sustainability for everybody, and how we're viewing it as the Mac Recreation District. So the first thing for me is knowing where we've been is helpful. So November of 24, the district was formed, 25 cents per thousand is the permanent rate, and the voters approved an $8 million construction bond. In 2006 and 2007 is when, you know, the stuff is getting built, they're putting equipment in. So most of the equipment that services this building was installed in 2006. So when you think about our domestic hot water heater that runs 24/7, she was installed in 2006 and she's old.
Yeah.
We're nursing her along, but she's old, as is a lot of our mechanical equipment in this building. The MAC opened to the public January 30th, 2008. And immediately that year ended the fiscal year with a $70,000 or $80,000 deficit. And so got funding from community groups, from businesses, from the Bean Foundation, and was able to stay open. But from day one, from year one, this organization was running on a deficit. In May of 2013, the first local option levy was passed at 40 cents per thousand, and it's been renewed twice in 2018 and 2022. The next renewal would be in 2027. That is 40 cents per thousand. We had two failed measures in May of 2024 that would have raised $1.20, the permanent rate, that 25 cents per thousand, to $1.24 per thousand. And essentially would have taken 3 tax lines on your tax bill and made them one. This year, we're coming back in May of 2025 with the same measures at $1.19 per thousand because the board felt it was important to not raise taxes, to keep it neutral with what folks were seeing on their tax bill this year. Now, over all of these years of elections and funding challenges, the name changed for the district twice. The mission changed in 2017 to include sports programming and enrichment programming and not just aquatics. That change was done because a needs assessment was done in 2012. And that needs assessment said that the community wanted one central hub for recreation programs rather than various different groups running sports. So that the mission was changed in 2017. In this time frame, there have been 10 executive directors, COVID-19, and then now we're really struggling with some of this equipment aging and failure. So these are some of the, just put us in a picture of our mindset. Been doing a lot of research through old boxes and found some things. So I found that original Madras Area Recreation Program Needs Assessment that was conducted in January of 2012. There was an in-house strategic plan, 5-year strategic plan. There's a report from interim director Barth. He was the director between Joe McCaney and Jim Wireman, for those of you that know the history. And then in November of 23, the board adopted a 10-year master plan and received a business plan from 2 separate consultants. Going through these documents, There are 4 things that were included in every single one. There's a lack of sustainable funding. There's a lack of resources for MAC maintenance, going back to 2012. Insufficient staffing and expertise. And we got to expand programs to meet community expectations. So these are the 4 things that are in all of these reports. And they're all available on our governance website. So if anyone wants to look at them, you're more than welcome to do that. So with our current master plan, we're focused on years 1 and 2 sustainability, really figuring out how are we going to make sure that we can provide these programs and services into the future. And so that's what sort of led the board last year to very quickly take measures to the ballot to try and address this issue.
Well, that's ginormous maintenance.
Yes, plus a number of challenges. One of the things that I'm not sure we ever really did in this last few years, aside from what was written in that business plan, was talk about how we define sustainability. What does that mean? And so we sat down as a team and we did our best to define in our minds what that means. And so board members, as you look at this, if you have things that you would add or remove from these definitions, this is your chance to weigh in, because at the end of the day, this is information that can be used as the district goes out and talks about these measures that are on the ballot for the future. So sustainable operations have 4 pillars: budget and resources, personnel, staffing, maintenance, and then programs, which is the services that we provide to the communities. So when you look at budget sustainability, what does that mean? And what we tried to do as a team is underline what we're already doing. So as we go through these slides, you'll notice there's not a lot of underlined things. We put a star next to things that we expect we can accomplish in 1 to 2 years of the measures passing. And we put a triangle next to it if we think it could take 3 to 5+ years to get there. If the measures do not pass, we hope we can continue to do the underlined things, but we may not even be able to do those things. So I just, for transparency's sake, want to be clear about that. So budget sustainability means that we can balance our budget without relying on one-time grants. Grants are great when you're trying to expand programs and do new things. They are not a reliable source of operational funding, and most grantors are not funding operations and maintenance and those types of things. Sufficient resources to meet legal, safety, and certification requirements without sacrificing other things. This is the situation we're in right now. We are sacrificing hours that we could be open to the public for maintenance. That is what's happening right now. We can't afford both. We have to choose. And if I have to choose between replacing a board that keeps the pools warm and being open for an extra couple open swims, we got to keep these pools warm. We have an asset that we're trying to maintain. So we're between a rock and a hard place right now with having to make some of these decisions because of our lack of sustainability in our budget. Funding July to November with our own cash flow, not having to take out that tax anticipation loan is part of being sustainable with our budget. Clean annual audits is something that is important, and we've done it for 4 years for the first time in the history of the district. So we'll continue to do that as long as you have staff who are competent and capable of doing that. Reserves for capital and maintenance needs and emergencies. If we had passed those measures last year, there would be a triangle next to this one. With the reduction of our rate from $1.24 to $1.19, this one's going to take a little bit longer for us to build up those reserves. This is kind of what we sacrifice for going from $1.24 last year to $1.19 this year. And then adequate funds to maintain our assets. We foresee that we will be able to use non-bond financing and use our permanent tax rate dollars that we have to leverage that non-bond financing so that we don't have to go out for a bond and we can still maintain our asset.
And Courtney, just to clarify, the 4 years of clean annual audits, those are your 4 years, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yes.
Definition of maintenance sustainability. You'll note that there is nothing underlined on this page because we are not doing any of these things. We're doing the best we can with what we've got, but we could be doing so much more. So adequate funding for preventative maintenance. Right now, all we do is respond to things breaking. We have implemented some things where we're capable, but there's way more we could be doing. Having a professionally developed preventative maintenance schedule, that's not been done here. Comprehensive maintenance records. We have lots of handwritten books back there that are not easily accessible or researchable. This is part of a project that we hope to complete as part of this process. Proactive management of district assets and systems. You heard Frank talk about this at our last board meeting. There's all kinds of things we could be doing with our systems proactively to do better, and we just don't have capacity to do it. Which leads me to a lead maintenance professional for the MAX, solely focused and trained on certified pool operator, facility maintenance, and pump room responsibilities. We're cobbling this together right now between 5 of us, and it's 5 of us who have other responsibilities too. Consistent and reliable custodial, HVAC, pump room, and Climatech oversight. That's not something we have right now, just kind of happens, although we do have great custodial staff, and I don't want it to sound like we don't, because we do. That's one thing that I could put a star next to. Our custodial team is awesome. We have a estimated $1.2 million locker room project that is going to need to happen in the next 3 years. We bought ourselves 5 to 10 years when I first came on with a $30,000 lipstick on a pig project. I'm just going to call it what it is. Because the walls are crumbling, they were not installed correctly to begin with. There was a settlement at some point between the district and the builder for like $15,000. If they had fixed it then, we would not be looking at a $1.2 million project. This is the story of the district in one bullet. And then we need to replace the domestic water heater. Our patrons have been very understanding. When they come in the morning, they'll just let us know, hey, you got to go back and give her a reset because it's cold. And we do. So that's going to have to be replaced. If the measures do not pass, I'm not sure any of this happens from a maintenance sustainability perspective, although we'll continue to do the best we can. Personnel sustainability. This is the one that we're doing okay with in terms of currently implemented or in practice things, because there are some things we can do that don't require money. It just requires culture on our team. So hiring staff with the necessary training and expertise to set them and the district up for success, competitive wages and benefits at all levels, opportunities for work-life balance. We're burning through some of our team right now. I need the board to know that. And so this is a real concern for me. We have an amazing team right now, and I want to do everything I can to help keep the band together. So I want it. We don't expect to have that in the first 1 to 2 years of passing these measures. We think it's going to take some time to build that capacity within our team. Opportunities for growth through training and development. Again, we're doing a lot of things now. We're not doing as much as we could be to help folks grow. We already have lateral and vertical opportunities for growth, especially for our lifeguards. They can be lifeguard 1, 2, 3, then they can become head guards. We're getting a couple of head guards certified CPOs so they can open or close the building without Shauna or I needing to be here, or Peyton, which is going to be huge for all of us in our efforts to have work-life balance. And then my favorite one on this that honestly is probably one of the most important to me is developing good employee habits in our first-time workers. When we hire those 14, 15-year-olds, it's really fun to see them grow into responsible employees and to do it in a loving and supportive way and not a punitive way. So we try and create a really positive work environment and help them grow and learn as employees. And then program sustainability. Programming is what we do. This is the meat and potatoes of the district. We want to have consistent and high quality activities that respond to community and market needs. Consistent and high quality patron services. We've done a lot to improve that area over the last 4 years. There's more that we can do. Continuity of expectations. When you have 10 executive directors in, the expectations, the programming, when you have a program lead that changes over regularly, it's hard to have that continuity. We've been working on documenting stuff. So if someone leaves, someone else can slide in and know what they need to do. That none of that exists here. That is all being built while we fly it. Staff responsible for leading specific program areas. Right now we have one staff member leading aquatic sports enrichment, special events, partnership development, and volunteer support. And also at a gym right now, site supervising that and doing all the scheduling and supervising the 30 kids. It's a lot for one person. In my mind, wouldn't it be great if we had someone who was responsible for sports and someone who is responsible for special events and partnerships? This is what we want to see the district grow into, because then we can start doing some really cool things and serving this community the way that I think this community deserves to be served by this district. Support and training and resources for volunteers, ability to effectively respond to fluctuation in activity enrollment. Last year, we had 300 and something kids sign up for basketball. This year, it's 233. The ability to respond when things blossom and then when they deplete is important for sustainability. Programming that's right-sized to staffing and facility capacity. If we do what we've done the last 15 years, and don't right size our programming to our staffing, we burn staff out, we lose staff, and then we have that high turnover and we can't meet that high quality patron experience. Again, the story of the district. If you talk to folks who have had not great experiences with us, this is what they're talking about. This is the experience that they had. And then equipment that's well maintained and replaced when needed. That's been a struggle. And we've written a lot of grants over the last 4 years to try and replace sports equipment and other things to try and give kids quality equipment to play with. So you'll note that we don't have anything underlined on this page either, because we're doing the best we can with what we've got. But we're not doing these things the way that we as professionals feel like we could be. If we were a normal park and rec, we talk about that a lot. If we were normal, we could do a lot of these things. So, any questions about the definition of sustainability?
Well, I think it makes sense. I think it makes to where it's understandable. So that's what I think. So, just kind of little bikes out of it and people can.
Exactly.
So I always start with the worst case scenario and like to end on a positive note. So if the measures do not pass, this is the schedule that the staff has developed. And I'm going to be frank with you, I'm not sure we've cut enough for the financial position we're going to find ourselves in. So this is our best guess. Assuming that nothing else breaks, assuming that we don't have another giant tax refund come out of nowhere, all the best assumptions. Our current MAC hours are there on the left. We're open 27 to 30 hours a week, depending on if it's an open swim week or not. If the measures do not pass, for the summer, we would go down to 21 to 24 hours a week. And in the school year, we would go down to 12 to 15 hours a week, is what we're proposing.
Is that 12 to 15 hours a week sustainable?
I don't think so. No. It serves, so the goal when we talk about what our hours should be, we're thinking about older patrons that use fitness classes and the river and do independent workout and use the spa. We're thinking about families with toddlers that want a little bit more quiet time in the pool. We're thinking about swim teams that need lap swim time and patrons that lap swim. Believe it or not, we are trying to think about families. For me, and I hope I'm just being transparent, honest, and open. If I have the choice between having a open, available time for families that may or may not come and being open for folks that need to be in the water for their fitness and their health because they can't exercise on dry land, I am not going to be open for families. That's my recommendation. That's where I'm coming from. Now, the board, it's your prerogative to give different direction. And I will do my best to implement it, but this is how we've built these schedules, is based on staff's feelings about this. The other piece that's important if the measures do not pass is that mechanical or capital failures are going to result in the MAC closing. Until we have enough money that we can open back up and fix whatever it is and open back up. But when we close, we will lay off all of our staff that we can to save money. And then we will have to bring staff back when we're able to open back up. So I think you can see that that's going to be a challenge for us in that situation. Additionally, I'm going to keep going and then we'll come back. If the measures don't pass, we're going to implement board directed reductions of programs and services immediately. And initiate layoffs commensurate with those program reductions. And then we've really got to get serious talking with the city, the county, or private organization about taking over the district. Because I'm not sure that the district can continue without these measures passing, unless something changes, like the city or the county take it on. Early indications are there's not a lot of interest there. So it may be a conversation with privatization. But that's the place that we're going to be as a district if the measures do not pass. If the measures pass, when the measures pass, very different situation. So right now we're at 27 to 30 hours a week. When we open, our best case, when we open back up October 1st, after our September maintenance closure, is that we would be at 61 hours a week during the school year. So that's a doubling of hours when we go into the 2025 school year. And then the following summer, 76 hours. So it's almost a tripling of hours.
And then will you cut back for the school year?
So yes,
So that's what we're gonna, it's just gonna be like, now we have school year hours, summer hours, then go back to school year hours.
Yes.
Which
And
is 61 hours a week is pretty good.
yeah, that's double what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And part of my hesitation on timing is that we have some factors. So if the measures pass in May, from May to July 1, and probably through the end of July, we're going to be hustling to create the new district and dissolve the old district. Then we hopefully hire, there's 2 positions we got to hire immediately, and it's an aquatics operations supervisor and a sports program coordinator. Those are 2 things we got to hire immediately. As soon as we get those folks onboarded and make sure their lifeguards are all the things that they need to have for certifications, then we can look at expanding hours. But until that happens, I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, because with our current staffing level, we can't go from what we have now to 61 hours a week immediately.
Without those 2.
Without at least the aquatics operations supervisor. We've got to have that position, especially as we add days.
Wouldn't it entail some lifeguards too coming on for rotation?
We would need to hire, we actually feel like in the summer we can cover our hours with the seasonals we currently have. We always do classes every quarter for new lifeguards, but it's not seasonals that we're lacking, it's adults that we're lacking to go to the seven days a week.
During the school year, you're closed on Monday,
Yes,
and that affects the swim team.
yes,
Is there a way that you can open for those 2 hours for the swim team?
yes. We are under promising and over delivering. And the other thing too is that Mondays are used for maintenance. So we try and catch up on things. And so that's why for now we've got it as closed, but our goal is to be open on Mondays for swim team to be open, I think, where do we have it? From 3 to 7, I think is what we talked about originally.
For the swim.
For swim team, and then hopefully water polo and, whatever else we're able to bring back. Yeah.
Courtney, correct me if I'm wrong, going back to the prioritizing having the pool available for seniors, lap swimming, fitness classes, all that stuff, as opposed to completely opening it up for open swim, we also have to have that money from the school district in order to have these hours available, period, correct?
Correct.
Like, that's what's
Right
keeping
now.
the pool open, is that guaranteed contracted
Yes.
funds that we get from the school. So it's not necessarily, it wouldn't even be an either or prioritization, it's without being able to offer
Oh, yeah, we would definitely need to offer hours
Yeah.
for the swim team to practice after
Okay.
school, yes. Yeah. So our best case scenario is that we've got folks onboarded by October 1. I'm hoping that we have them on before then and we can add hours in the summer, but I just don't want to promise that when we don't know what our tax anticipation loan looks like. Because the other thing to remember is that the measures pass in May. We don't see those dollars until November. So we're still operating as if we're at 65 cents per thousand. Well, in theory, we would have cash to get us through. So we're operating on that loan to get us through. So if the measures pass, I'm hoping the county will give us a little bit bigger loan so that we can start that hiring to get
Yeah.
people on board sooner.
Yeah.
But if we don't get a bigger loan, then we can't onboard people until November when we get our tax money. Does that make sense? Because it's a cash flow issue for those months.
And I think we're gonna have to explain that because a lot of people are thinking that if it does pass, that next day, you're full blown open.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think they understand that or know that, and I think that's something we need to get out too, that it's, you're revving up that jet motor.
Yes.
And then it gets up to where it's at.
Yep.
Full revolutions.
Yeah, agreed. And I worry about that. I worry about that. We're gonna do it as quick as we can. Because we don't want to be, I know that there's a perception that we want to be closed. We don't want to be closed. We want to be open for everybody all the time. We also don't want to work 70 hours a week, 7 days a week. So we're trying to find this balance. And it's hard when we're not sustainable in every way. And then from a project perspective, if the measures pass, we're going to begin the design process for the locker room project, develop that preventative maintenance plan, onboard our programming staff, explore those non-bond finance options for our capital maintenance needs. And then we'll still be paying off our tax anticipation loan. So we need to remember that that's money that then gets paid back. So it's not like we have extra money that first year. It's that second year that will be in a better position. And in that second year, we're hoping to build and complete that locker room project. We're hoping for minimal interruptions to the district. We're usually closed in September, so to try and do it around that time period. We want to evaluate our cost recovery framework. With those tax dollars, the board can have a conversation around how much are we recovering through fees. Maybe we have more subsidy now, so the fees can come down. Maybe the fees are appropriate. That's a conversation the board has to have in the context of cost recovery, which we would bring in a third party to help us have that conversation. And then we can really start doing some cool stuff, exploring some formal partnerships with the county, with the cities and the parks, doing programming, school districts, trying to get Culver School District in here for swim lessons. We keep trying to write grants for that. And then really looking at events we can be doing. We've got a whole list of stuff our team has been wishing and wanting to do for years. And so we're really trying to be balanced because there was a lot of disappointment on the team last May when the measures did not pass. We're trying to be optimistic that this will look different this year, but also realistic that if they don't, then we're looking at a very different path. It's kind of hard to be in both spaces as a team for the staff. That is my presentation. It's a very long one and I'm sorry, but wanted to cover all the things and give Scott and his team all the things that they need when the PAC starts ramping up in terms of talking points and what it means if the measures pass or do not pass.
Can I post some of these?
Please.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Because I will.
Share it far and wide.
It's gonna add on the pack is already.
Did you ask her about tying Instagram to Facebook with all those posts?
I don't know, never to know all the Facebook stuff was supposed
I think they are tied.
to.
Well, they don't though. The little meeting we had Friday night and I whipped out my phone because I see it on Instagram, all the things that are going on. But when you go on Facebook to the MACRD, those same posts aren't tying in to pop up.
We'll look at that.
I think you do it from your Instagram
And
and
then
you can share it
Yeah.
to your Facebook.
And that was the one thing that,
Yeah,
interesting or useful thing that came out of our naysayer and fence sitter meeting, which one person attended.
yeah. But we had another gal came in and weighed in, you know, we're weighing Facebook versus Instagram, and she says, I never Facebook, and she's of that generation that you think they would. She said, no, we only Instagram, there's
Yep.
too much negativity on Facebook with those sites. Really? So, yeah, we thought we better tie the two together, because if they're only a Facebooker, yeah,
Yeah.
they're not getting those shared.
And you know,
Yeah.
we can cut off the comments, right? You can limit your comments.
So the board could adopt a policy to do that, if the board wanted to do that.
I moved.
I just wanted to add in there that the path is working that way too. Yeah. Facebook is a very hostile place. Instagram, we're going to move that way. Looking at the other alternatives to social media, from our perspective, if we utilize Facebook for ads, this won't have comments. So we have control of the message, and we're not battling the sharks.
I mean, they can still come in on your Instagram if they follow your Facebook. You're still gonna have those people that will comment with negativity on Instagram too.
Yeah, like I said, we'll kind of do that. One of the things that I'd work out is that social media, those things, which is not my expertise, but I'm looking for. people that have some.
And then capital improvement maintenance, you guys know where we're at?
Courtney, for this presentation, can you send the board members a soft copy of it? I know it's in our board packet, but just the actual.
Just the presentation itself.
presentation, yeah.
Yes.
So we've got that handy. Okay. And probably the friends too. Or we can forward to friends.
Okay.
Thank you.
What do we think as posting the winter, when the measure passes, this is what we're planning on doing for the 61 and 72 hours, putting that on social media. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the plan. I get nervous if
actual.
we just
page.
need to be very clear that starts later.
And after the county gives us an increased tax anticipation.
Yes.
I think we should
And that
let
would
the,
take until June or July to get that approved.
Well, I mean.
We want to make sure all the ducks are in a row, but yes.
Say, best case, starting November 1. Okay.
I think we should
Depends
craft
on the
very
timing.
firm messaging around it and maybe let the PAC send it out.
So it
As
all
part of
depends on the
their,
timing.
yeah. Just so we can make sure that,
When those measures
When
pass,
the measures
there's still some.
A little bit of lag time.
I'm sure the county's gonna pass. I feel confident.
So do I. And my hope is that we can get that approved even before
Start talking.
May.
Yeah.
Yes.
okay, if there's nothing else for the work session. I will convene the business meeting at 7:24. The roll call, Chair Seabold is present, Vice Chair Lewis is absent, Secretary Treasurer McCloskey,
Present.
Board Member Maynard,
Okay.
and Board Member Dominguez.
Present.
We will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And our land acknowledgement. Every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will, some were drawn to leave their distant homes in hope of a better life, and some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. In Central Oregon, we are standing on the ancestral lands of the Wasco, Warm Springs, and Paiute people. We pay respects to their elders, past and present. Now we are looking to adopt the agenda. If there is such a movement.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Jean. Is there a second? Thank you, Frank. All in favor? Aye. That is unanimous, so motion passes. Next up, we have correspondence.
Board members, you have two pieces of correspondence in your packet. One is a letter from Rotary Club of Jefferson County. Historically, we have supported their Rotary Sports booklet with buying an ad from the Mac Recreation District. Their letter indicates that they're no longer going to be doing the sports booklet. And so instead, to raise money for scholarships, they're looking for donations. Typically, we don't do cash donations to anyone as a special district. We buy ads when we can. So I wanted to include it in your board packet in case you are moved as an individual to provide a donation.
If we do a donation, can we do it in the name of that?
Yeah, we just wouldn't be using taxpayer money to do that donation. And then the Jefferson County Faith-Based Network sent this report that I included in your board packet. And I think they are also soliciting donations. Typically, what we end up donating for different programs and services is a 10 punch card or a basket with a t-shirt, a 10 punch card, and some other things. When people ask for donations, we don't do cash, like I said, donations. So we'll continue to do that for folks that request it. There's going to be one at the chamber banquet on Friday. And that is all the correspondence.
Next up is the visitor section public comment, wherein members of the public are welcome to speak to the board of directors during this time. They should sign in at the beginning of the meeting to be recognized by the board chair. Speakers are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. We will start in the room if anyone would like to speak.
I would like a moment.
If you would come up, Scott, and state your name so that we have it through the recording and those on Zoom.
I
And
did sign in late, but I can bring
you're
it.
fine. And speak into a microphone.
I was gonna say the mic is right there for you. You can have a seat in the hot seat right there.
Scott Taylor, Chair of the,
Close,
is that
yep,
better? Okay.
yep.
I'll start again. So Scott Taylor, Chair of the Friends of MacRD, as well as Max and MacRD. Just following up, first of all, I thought your presentation was excellent, Courtney. Really laid out definitively what all the issues are by each of the sections that you're going through there. I think for one of the things with the pack that we're working on is, which I know that everyone, all the board members are aware of, that with the closures, the reduced hours in the open swim session, has caused, a bit of a breach with relations with people that are supporters of the district. And one of our immediate issues is to address, once again, as I've talked before, about reiterating all the great things that the MacRD has been able to accomplish, even with all of its financial issues that it's facing. And so we're communicating that on our the email system that we have is actually expanded now to be a bit of a forum. And so the last few days seen a lot of increase, both back and forth with people that have made open statements to the entire group, which I always encourage, and I'm going to continue to encourage to do that, as well as people that are private messaging me as well. And so I think both of those things are really a positive sign. It's taken us a while longer than I thought to break the ice, to get people to talk about the MacRD and the things that are going on and how they feel about it. And so, and there's, strong feelings in a number of different ways on there, but it's really, hoping that we get to that point where we kind of get to break through that. I think that happened last week with the meeting that we had. It was, as I said, kind of freewheeling, but it was actually the type of interaction that I've been hoping to have for a long time, where ideas, concerns, all these things were it just kind of came all out at once. And so, but part of that process, from my perspective, is really important. So I gave up on my agenda, for the night. But that's what I've been waiting for, is to get that, and there's, you know, there's even issues between some of us that are looking about the best way to promote and go forward. I think there's a little difference of importance or opinion on that, which I also think is really important as well. So we work those things out and we coalesce around what we want to do going forward. And so I actually feel very encouraged about that aspect of it. I have been out in the community quite a bit this last week, and so that's been going well, and once again, extending the communications as much as possible. I mentioned to Courtney about possibly doing a business after hours event here, having the PAC host that through the chamber as well. And so I need to follow up with Courtney about that. And of course, I'll talk with Debbie Taylor as well about too, and what we can get together on those parts of it. There's revisions being made to our new Back the Mac logo. For some of the things that I mentioned to Courtney, incorporating some of the icons for all the sports, because what we want to do, we're a recreation district, we're not just an aquatic center, and we want to make sure that we include all of the sport programs. I'm still working on that, but all the sport programs, so that there's an inclusion in that, and so that people understand it's not just the aquatic center that would be affected, it's also all the sport programs as well. And so I think when we get to that, we come back to the community and say, you know, this is what's going on, this is why this has happened on there. I know there's some hurt feelings about having that done. I know to some extent that some people believe, well, you know, now you're gonna hold us hostage because you won't do the open hours unless we vote for the thing. And so it's, you know, once again, there's issues to address with the community and such, but at least I feel that we've made progress. The communication is starting to flow on there, which is the most important thing. And the, you know, and the first place that we're working, of course, is those of our longtime supporters, because those are the, that's what we need to connect with first. And so that's what we're working on. Anyway, thanks. I just want to be quick with you.
Thank you, Scott. Anyone else in the room? Sam?
I'll state my name for the record, Sam Robinson. And two things, and more, but one thing is that thank you for the compliment, Courtney, about we have excellent janitorial workers. And I'm like, yeah, yes, you do. I want to say thank you for that compliment. And number two, I would like to thank Frank Maynard and Scott Taylor for coming down to Kiwanis to present about the MAC, and you guys answered the questions about certain things that needed to be asked. And that happened because Lamar asked me to reach out to the MAC board members to invite some of the MAC members to come to Kiwanis. I'm glad that Frank and Scott Taylor were able to make it down, and it was awesome to see them presenting at the Kiwanis group. And yeah, thank you again. And I talked to Lamar a little bit about that too, and he suggested maybe reaching out, that you guys reach out to some of the contacts that he has provided you guys as well. So yeah, now, but more updated news. Well, I'm getting more confident to say now, I'm getting more confident to the point where I can say we'll be starting to launch the 501c3 for Unity for Inclusion pretty soon, supporting people with disabilities. And I got it for treasurer, I got it for secretary, and I'm the board president. And I see the look on your face, Irby, so I will explain about Unity for Inclusion a little bit as like I said, I don't have much time, so I'll explain it briefly to the best I could. Unity for Inclusion supports people with disabilities. It educates and fosters a brighter hope for the community. And what we're trying to do is create this nonprofit. It's done on the idea of all the advocacy work that I've done here in Madras, Oregon. Ever since I first moved here in 2017, when I started an advisory committee. And then it led to an incident that I heard about in Japan where a terrible incident occurred 8 years ago. And I got to visit that care facility. I won't go into much details about that incident because I don't want to take too much of your guys' precious time. So, but I got to go visit that care facility. And with this nonprofit that I'm starting, I'm hoping to bring more people in to Japan, people with disabilities. I'm hoping down the road to start a cultural exchange program. And also probably doing a disability for a day workshop training. And I talked to Courtney a little bit about that, and she was like, she would probably be the number 2 person I would reach out to when it comes to the disability for a day program. And I showed her the business plan. I showed her, yeah, Courtney is amazing. I'm glad to have her as my boss, and I can't say that anymore, and I'm grateful to be an employee of the MAC. And I do not wish for the MAC to shut down, please. Let's just pass these measures so it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, that tax reduction surprised me too. I thought I was gonna lose my job and not go to Japan. Thankfully, that never happened. Ugh, last year was a rough year. But let's not make this happen again. And I will end that.
Here, thank you. Anyone else in the room care to speak? Oh.
But I am waiting.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Seeing no one else in the room, anyone on Zoom? Oh, we lost people.
Amanda is the last man standing. Amanda, any visitor section comment? She is not unmuting, so I'm taking that as a no.
All right. Then we will move on to financial reports.
Board members, I basically gave you the December financial report already in the work session. I do want to share with you the Jason cash flow analysis. Let me get there. Which is in your packet. Wow, that is really tiny. So as you know, every year, I put this analysis together to try and show what our cash flow looks like, mostly through the July through November months, but also for the rest of the year to give us a sense of our cash flow. And as you look at the sheet, we're looking at the far right-hand column where it says estimates for fiscal year 24-25, which is our current fiscal year. And as you go to the bottom of that, you can see we have actuals through December. And based on my estimates, we're going to end June with $3,000. And so, as I shared with you in the work session, I have some concerns about us making it to June 30. I also have concerns about us going over our budget authority. If you'll notice down here at the bottom, it says that we're 110% over budget in resources and 113 over in expenses. So to me, what that says is we may be doing a budget adjustment, but we're trying to make some operational decisions so that we don't have to do that. And we'll see what comes over the next few months. But I'm happy to answer any questions, Jean, as the treasurer, if you have anything from looking at the financials.
We went over. Unless I had my cheat sheet in front of me, I can't even remember what they were. We answered them all. I couldn't find a couple of, I don't remember what it was, the Amazon charges. I couldn't find the explanation of a few of them, but then
They were able to find us.
All right. Next up, we are looking for a motion, for the consent agenda. Anyone here to make such a motion?
I thought we were-
Oh, I thought Irving.
I'm just listening, so
Haven't been such a-
I'm listening and learning. So,
Yeah, I heard Frank make the motion to, approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second? Thank you, Jean. All in favor? Aye. Any, was unanimous, so it passes. Next up, we have consideration for resolution number 2025-06, adopting findings of fact and a plan for district dissolution and liquidation.
So I'll make the motion to approve resolution number 2025-06. Adopting findings of fact and a plan for the district dissolution and liquidation.
Thank you, Jean. Is there a second?
Also,
Thank you, Frank. All in favor?
I,
Aye. Any opposed? Jean, I'm just for the record. Your motion passes
Oh, aye.
unanimously.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Nod my head.
Okay, agenda item number 10 was to consider approving policy 2025-01 infant work policy, during work session. I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, I would recommend postponing the
Yes.
discussion to the February 12th work session, if
Perfect.
that is okay with the board.
Yes.
You need a motion to change that, or we're just gonna postpone and take a hard look at it. Yeah.
Yep, we don't need a motion to do that.
Next up is considering approving a proposed process and timeline for the annual executive director evaluation and identifying one board member to work with the chair during the process. Would anyone care to make such a motion and nominate?
Didn't we identify one person already?
It's usually the vice chair.
Usually the vice chair.
Oh, she's not here.
She's not
Here we
here.
go again.
Which is how she became vice chair.
That's exactly right.
we can make motion,
You wanna make it? We're
I
gonna
will make-
put Janelle in there.
but motion,
And nominating Janelle?
yeah.
Jennifer?
Oh,
Okay.
yes. Could be a better person for the job.
And I will second that.
Thank you, Jean. All in favor? Aye.
Aye,
Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Janelle.
again.
I shouldn't laugh. That means she's working with me on
I was
it.
gonna say, you get to work on it too.
She's stuck with me. Okay, next up, we have the executive director report.
And this is a fun one tonight. I'm excited to share some stuff with you. So, our patron services team is awesome. So this is Natalia, Nyla, and then I help with it as well. They just have been coming up with all these great ideas over the last few weeks, and I wanted to share some of them with you. So we've instituted a 90-day email reminder that punch cards will be expiring in 90 days. Historically, it just expires and then people come in and they're upset. And normally I approve an extension for it, but this way, hopefully we get ahead of it and we're letting folks know that their punch cards are going to expire. We have a January punch card membership special going right now. Buy a 20 punch card membership. You get 5 extra punches and a free t-shirt. And we've seen a huge increase. I had one mom buy 5 passes. So she got 125 punches on her account, and 5 t-shirts. And I threw in a sweatshirt with that one because that was a big one. That was all from staff. Open swims now have more pre-register spots. You know, we heard the board say when we go online and we see that it's full, then people don't know they can come in. So rather than holding more spots for walk-ins, we're front loading more spots. And we did see an increase in people here when our last one, it's all the days are not this last Sunday, but the Sunday before that.
Is there a note that we do have available walk-in?
There is, but it's
Teeny
tiny. That's something that we're looking at trying to fix too. And then we also added a checkbox for patrons to indicate that they understand they have to get in the water with a kiddo that's under 8 years old. Something we run into frequently is that they'll come in and say, well, we didn't know that. Now I have to run home and get my bathing suit or buy one for $50 from you guys. So now it's a checkbox so that people indicate that they are aware that this is a rule before they even come here. So we're hoping that that helps with that situation.
Has that always been with the open swims?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, with anything, anybody in the water, if they're 8 or younger, has to have an adult. We do make exceptions if we've got a kiddo that's passed all of their swim lessons and they're younger than 8, and we have it in the system that they passed all their level up through level 4, then we'll let them in without a parent.
I did not know that, but I think at our meet and greet the other night, the parent that was there, mentioned something.
Probably brought that up.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
It's a safety issue. So we have less saves. And then there's also a new pop-up when you go to the website that prompts you to sign up for our newsletter, which we've reinstituted. So you'll remember last year, I think we did it for 3 months and then it stopped going out, this monthly newsletter. Well, staff didn't do it because we got 3 free months. And then they said, well, we don't want to spend the money on it. Well, come to find out it's $10 a month. I said, well, that is money well spent. So now we are doing a monthly newsletter and folks can sign up for it on our website. So trying to get better every day, that we can always get better in a lot of things. And so that's something that's happening.
Schedule proposed summer and winter schedule.
So we have to be careful about what and how we communicate about election outcomes because of state laws. Staff has to be careful. The board, you all can do whatever you want, but for staff, when we're on the clock, we're not allowed to do anything that could be perceived as promotion. And so last year we tried to get approval on a information piece from the state and we never got approval, and they made it so that you couldn't understand it. As someone who almost got a PhD, I had to read sentences like 7 times because I couldn't understand what they were saying as a government person. So we're not going to do that this year. We're going to just do our best to let the PAC speak on behalf of the district as it relates to the election outcomes. Partnership update. I wanted you to know, I got to sit at the gym for the Jefferson County Public Health basketball. We had 66 10 to 17-year-olds plus 5 old guys that came for that open gym. It was so fun to watch. They're on Friday nights from 6 to 9 p.m. at Bridges High School. It's through a grant that the health department got. And what a cool kids and the old guys playing 3-on-3 and subbing out and practicing free throws and just having a great, it's an amazing thing that's happening. And these are middle school kids that don't have a lot of programs targeted at their age group. So I just want to invite you anytime to drop in at Bridges High School on a Friday night and see all the kids that are out playing basketball.
Did I see something that they opened it up on Sundays now too? Is that?
Yes. So we have open gym pickleball from 1 to 3 and then basketball from 3 to 6 on Sundays at Bridges High School. Yep.
You get a lot of pickleball players?
Yes. I was there Sunday and we had 4 in right at 1 o'clock. And then by the end, I think we had cycled through like 10 or 11 people, 13 people, something like that. I played with the first guy for a minute. It's really fun. I encourage pickleball for anyone that hasn't done it. We talked about memberships, but I wanted to show you a graph because I'm a data graph kind of person. As of January 17th, our membership numbers were up 136%. And that's because of the change and from Silver and Fit to Optum. And I just wanted you to see, these are our membership numbers going back to 2020 through January 17th of 25. And we've already surpassed last year in third-party health insurance memberships. And we're on track to surpass last year in just about all our areas, except for Fitness RX. And that's the program where St. Charles Health System used to pay for any doctor basically to write a prescription to the pool. And now they only pay for St. Charles family practice physicians to write those referrals because it got too expensive. It was too popular. The good news is a lot of those folks are now getting that third-party health insurance membership. And I mean, that bar on the far right, that dark blue one is only 6 months. We still have 6 more months left of this year. So a really positive story to tell. We're entering our busiest school year season with basketball, rec league and open gym. We've got youth swim team and high school swim team practicing. We've got meets going on. We had our first swim meet last Saturday. I think we had about 300 people in the building. We found out that day from the athletic director at the high school, there are 300 athletes signed up to swim for districts. So I'm going to go and meet with the building official and find out how we manage that. Because if we have 300 swimmers, if you figure each of them has at least 2 people with them, we're going to exceed capacity real quick in this building. So that's something that we're working with the high school on, how we're going to manage that. Great problems to have, because all those folks will be staying overnight Friday to Saturday on February 14th and 15th. So February 14th may be Valentine's Day, but it's probably not the day to go out to dinner in Madras with all those visiting folks. Would encourage you to come and visit any of these programs, and I have them all listed out, their times, their locations, and everything in this report, so you can check it out. And then I already talked about the training opportunity that Logan and Ryan Boyle provided, and really, if you see them, say thank you so much. It's been a huge game changer for those refs. And then lastly, I wanted to share with you our data so far on open swims for this current year. This is July 1. No, this is October 11th through January 11th. So this is just our school year open swims. You can see that for the no school open swims, those are on days when there's no school. We've had 4 of those so far, and our average attendance is about 55 people. For our Saturday open swims, we've had 4 of those so far. Average attendance is about 88 people. Sundays, our average attendance on 3 different Sundays has been about 73. And then we did have a rented out buyout, and that one covered costs, so that we had 160. So someone paid $1,600 to rent out the open swim. And they did have 160 people come for that. That was a Warm Springs prevention team, and they do that frequently throughout the year and in the summer. So the important thing with this to note is a few things. One, remember, for us to staff an open swim, just the staffing cost is about $1,000. So we did not cover costs with any of these open swims, with the exception of the rent out one. And 2, Saturday continues to be our most popular. So we had a lot of folks last year saying, well, if you're open on Sundays, everybody would come on Sunday, because Saturdays, a lot of families are doing sports and they have other things happening in their life. Sundays have been popular. I mean, having 75 people in the pool on average is great. If I had to say when we should do open swims, I would say Saturdays, based on not only this data, but all of the data that we looked at before. And we hope we can continue to do Sundays as well, because we have quite a few folks that are coming for those. So that's our open swim participation data so far this year. And then lastly, we have our program and activity participation for all the different programs that we have going right now. And just we'll continue to add to this every month. I haven't done an official executive director report in a while, so we're going to get back into this swing of that. Lastly, we are on the Confederate Tribe of Warm Springs Council, Tribal Council agenda on February 10th. Deanna is going to go with me. If there's one more board member that wants to attend with us, that would be awesome. It's at 2:30 on that Monday, February 10th. So you could just let us know if you want to come.
And what are you gonna do? Are you just presenting the slideshow?
We're going to present the slideshow, and then we'll add some other data and information about Warm Springs users and community members that are taking advantage of the different programs. We got some great pictures of the 2nd grade Warm Springs K-8 group that came and did swim lessons. So we'll probably put some pictures up there too of those kids. It was awesome. And that's my report.
Board member highlights.
I went to the commission meeting this morning, because I was curious how the public hearing would go. I thought there might be people show up, and it was very uneventful. Nobody chose to speak, and then one person, George, George Bruce, yeah.
Mhm.
Jonathan spoke about how he felt the MAC is a gem and kind of tried to tie it back to economic development and brings people into the community.
I had the naysayers and fence sitters that I invited anybody to attend and I would buy a beer. Apparently a beer is not incentive to get anybody to participate, even to come talk. We have one very young, nice young mother, full of ideas. Did that, and then went to Kiwanis and talked, and it was actually a pleasurable, situation. I took up too much time and didn't leave start enough, but we got an event, they gave us some more. And we made it work. We made it, yeah. So. That's
I have been excited catching up on, Friends of the McRD emails. Shameless plug, High Desert Community Theater has kicked off the spring production, so I'm excited to expand my social network, through that group and meet more people that I can share information about how outstanding the district is, and how they should vote, yes.
And board four.
And board fourth.
That's quite a cast. I see that. Looks like.
It's a big cast.
Production that.
Yeah, and all ages, we've got down to, 8th grade. In the play, so it's gonna be a true community, production, so very excited. All right, if there is nothing else from the group, we will adjourn at 7:57.
As always, thank you for your organization.
That was great. It was very good.
Yeah, some.